We are speaking with Dr. Melissa Luke, author of the book Life in the World of Yomo. And I just met Yomo because he's a picture in the front part of the book. 12 Steps to a Perfect Career. Dr. Luke, I was reading your book and I saw where a friend of yours urged you to write the book and you were kind of reluctant.
I was a little bit because writing is not my forte. I love to chirp away, chime, talk in front of thousands of people, but I am not really a person that loves to sit down and write.
Well, she then suggested that you get a dictating machine and dictate the content into that. Is that what you did?
No, actually, she's a very funny woman. Her name's Betty Fahey. She lives out in Long Island, and she said, why don't you just get a ghostwriter or go on Fiverr.com and get somebody to write it? And I said, what is Fiverr.com? And she said, people do things for $5. And I looked. I really did. So
no.
Somebody write my book for $5?
No, you did not.
I did, but I ended up writing it myself, and it actually became really fun because it is a short read. It's probably a 4.5 hour read, and it really was reflection back on the steps that I went through to get to that perfect career stage. And then it became kind of just like a story instead of really sitting down and writing some kind of technical thing that I'm used to doing. And that's probably why I don't like to write anymore, is because no one wants to sit down and write a 180-page technical paper on fraud. So I had a lot of fun writing it after I started.
Best part about the book is it's very inspirational, but it's easy to understand. It's in words that anybody can understand and adapt. You explain how things can be adapted. What was your first exposure, if you can remember this, to what we call goal orientation?
Well,
or did that just come to you out of the blue one day?
I've always had some kind of mystical fairy tale story in my head. So at a very young age, I just pretty much thought everything could be the way that you wanted it to be. At the age of 14, I envisioned myself sitting where I was when I was 25 years old and 30 years old, and so I've had that creative mind, and that's really where I focus in on Life in the World of Yomo, is taking you back to that childlike state where you really don't think that anything can stop you. And as the older we get, we almost become stupid. We just begin to think we can't do things. And so I try to pull people back into that young age where you think that you are unstoppable, and then we start all over again and make you unstoppable. And so that's kind of the mindset. I don't know where I got that mindset, but I'm 42 years old and I still act like a child. So I don't know.
You're a mere youth. You are a youth.
I don't want to be mean, but I almost push people down to get in line at the to get on the rides at the fair or whatever. I want to get on.
I'll never tell. I'll never tell that. Shakespeare wrote, "Our doubts are traitors that cause us to learn to lose what we oft might win by failure to attempt." Our doubts are traitors that cause us to lose what we oft might win by failure to attempt. And I think that's where a lot of people end up. They may not be there when they're 16, but they get out in the work world and things aren't happening for them, and they get to believe that they can't change it, which they can. But over a period of time, the fears and the doubts take over, and they're powerless. In their mind, they're powerless.
And Shakespeare is absolutely correct. And the funny thing is in my book, I'm not introducing any new method that has never existed before. And
I don't know. Yomo is kind of new, and Yomo is something you can focus. I love the way you put all this. Yomo is the guy. He's the guy that can become somebody's focus. He's the guy to whom all of the principles in the book are kind of attributed, because he's the person that you're trying to create out of all these principles. It's a great idea. The book is a great idea. I love it.
Well, thank you very much. A lot of it is pulling neurology and quantum physics and all sorts of things that people do not want to listen to because it's just boring, and pulling it into a fun factor. So your Yomo is kind of putting yourself into a quantum physics realm. You're someplace else, and it is kind of, it's upper level, but it's written in a way that we can all understand it, even if you're in 8th grade. So
well, the book is about fun. The book is actually presented in a way under the umbrella of what you can do. These are things in your book. This is what we can do. Now, before we move on to something more important, I have to hear about your horse. You have to tell me about you're 12 years old and your horse. Tell me about your horse, please.
Oh, good Lord. I had this love for animals, and I wanted a horse, but I was raised, my parents were divorced, and my mother was a real estate agent, not making very much money, and so I couldn't have a horse. So basically I got my lunch money every day that I would save, and I would eat everybody else's lunch. So after a year and a half of eating my friends' lunches, I saved up enough money to buy a horse, but I couldn't afford the saddle, nor could I afford a horse that had been trained. So I bought kind of a crazy horse. And this gentleman just sold me the horse. I walked it home, but I had no place to put the horse.
You're serious now. You're serious now.
Oh, I'm dead serious.
This is a full-grown, this is a horse? A quarter horse, was it?
It was an Arabian.
Okay, because I know horses, so yeah, they're beautiful animals.
It was 3 years old, and we had bright blue carpeting in our living room, and I didn't know where to put it, so I put the horse in our family room. And my mother came home, and she was horrified. She didn't know what this horse was doing in there. Our backyard was the size of a bedroom, so I couldn't put it back there. And I had purchased the horse. I couldn't return it, so
has she awakened yet? Hey, Ma, look here. I can't believe this. Melissa's got a horse in the living room. Unbelievable. But you know what? That's the power of goal orientation.
That truly is, and I've never stopped. You just do whatever you want to and look back later.
Do you have a horse today?
I don't, but ironically, my mother ended up breeding Arabians, so she has about 13 of them now, or I think maybe a few have passed away since then. But no, my addiction became hers, and she ended up starting to breed Arabians. So
wonderful. I grew up with thoroughbreds, and I love horses. They're my favorite. My second favorite animal in the world is a tiger. And speaking of tigers and horses, which we're going to come up on a newscast here, so we'll be gone for about 3 minutes, but we'll be back with Dr. Luke. This is turning out to be fun. Don't go away.